When I was a child, I lived on the banks of the Red River. It winds its way through the meadows and the fields. And living now is a lot different than when I was young because we didn't have TV, we didn't have radio. You had to make your own entertainment. But if you lived, like I did, near Lella Todd, then you had it made. I think that every neighborhood should have a Lella. She would play hopscotch with us. She would giggle all the whole time as she jumped. She was a short, squat little lady. She always wore glasses and was so jolly. She laughed all the time, just like she was a little kid. She would take us out to her garden. She loved flowers. She would take us out into the woods, and she taught us how to go hunting. We would hunt for squirrel, and Lella was always the best shot. She could skin a squirrel faster than any man could. Her house was right on the banks of the river, so if she wanted fish to eat, well, she would just go down and get in her little boat, and she'd catch her some. Miss Lella had a pet crow. She caught it and tamed it and taught it how to talk, and she would call it and it would come and land on her shoulder. She had a pet cat too, which she called Kitty Puss. She would feed it a biscuit, and then her husband Claude would feed it a biscuit too. They were biscuits with the fluffiest butter you ever tasted. She made it herself. Miss Lella was just a precious person. I think she was at the birth of all 7 of my siblings. My mom had a child to die when it was just a baby, and Lella brought my mom a whole bouquet of flowers in the middle of November. Miss Lella didn't have any children of her own, but after school, all of us neighborhood kids would get so excited to go to Miss Lella's house. She would fix us special food. She had this big, big morning stove, and she would pop popcorn, and she'd make little corn cakes by dropping the batter onto the top of the hot stove. And in her living room, Miss Lella had a big red velvet couch, and on it were her instruments. She could play anything with strings on it, but we were not allowed to touch them. Miss Lella would go out to the porch. She'd pick up her fiddle, and she'd start to play. She'd get that thing and she would cut loose on it. And as kids, we would dance and dance. Many a weekend she would be out playing music. Men would call her up and ask her to come and play. She'd be ready. She never went anywhere without her fiddle and her rifle. There's a man who used to play banjo with her. He said she was a real old-time fiddler. She would get in there and she'd roll those notes, buddy. I mean to tell you, perfect. She was a real old-time fiddler. There was no hot dogging in her playing. She just played the tune. The prettiest music you ever heard. If we started to play at 6 in the evening, we wouldn't quit until 1 in the morning, and she would hang in there, buddy, right into there. She would keep playing, I guess, until she fell over. She was in her first heaven playing music. When Letha finished her story, we got in the car, we drove up a hill, and she took me to see Lella's grave.
And then we drove to the drive where Lella's house used to be. And Letha said, "You know, I can just see her right there, standing at the edge of the driveway with her pet crow on her shoulder."
Letha said she was wonderful. I wouldn't miss that life, just living by her. For the world.